Today, I wanted to talk about SGC grading and some of the deals that you can find out there on the open market. Let's get into it. So I wanted to talk about a grading company that I really haven't talked about to this point, and that is SGC. I actually have not graded with them this year. I pretty much grade exclusively with HGA, and I've also sent some cards out to PSA for grading as well. The reason I wanted to talk about SGC though is as I was looking up comps for various cards, I've noticed some incredibly low dollar sales for SGC slabs. And I thought to myself, is this a good buying opportunity? So that's what I wanted to get into today. And I wanted to go over a few examples of cards that sold in a PSA 10 slab and compare those to SGC 10s and kind of let me know what you think as far as the difference in price. And is this a good value? Is this kind of an arbitrage to capitalize on? Or is this just where SGC is going to be in terms of their relative value to PSA? Is this kind of where they're going to stay going forward? And that's something to consider. But one of the other things I wanted to consider, and as we get into the prices, I want to point that out, is I really look to buy the player. So I really don't care. I do care what slab it's in terms of the price point. But if I'm looking to buy a player and I see that there's a good card on sale on eBay and it happens to be in an SGC slab, I'm still going to consider buying that card depending on the price point, especially if it's a low print run card. And so we're going to get into a couple of cards that are have relatively low print runs, and they just happen to be graded with SGC, and they sell for a lower value than a PSA slab. That's where I really feel that you can make capitalize on this price difference. And before I get into this, I just wanted to start by talking about my opinion regarding SGC's grading process. I did watch a video. If you get a chance, you can look it up on Jeff Wilson. He is the sports card investor, and he has a separate YouTube channel that's called the Owner Suite. And in that channel, he does a video where he actually meets with the president of SGC, goes over the their process of grading, and they give you a really good tour behind the scenes, which I really liked. And it looks like the grading process is legit from what I can tell. I would trust that an SGC 10 card is just as good of a quality as a PSA 10 card. So that's where I want to start, because if I trust that the quality is good and I can get that card for half the price of a PSA 10 slab, to me, that is a bargain. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on with this video today. So let's get into it. One of the first cards that I looked up was a Julius Randle, one of my favorite players. His Select Concourse Silver actually just sold in a PSA 10 slab for $400. I was pretty excited about that because I picked up a raw Star Stock A silver of this very same card for about 50 bucks. So I was pretty excited to see the card sell for 400 in a PSA 10 slab. The exact same card sold in an SGC 10 slab for $93. Now, these sales took place, I believe, within days of each other. So these were very recent sales. Now, to be fair, a Julius Randle Premier level silver, so this is also his Select, but it's Premier, just sold, I believe it was yesterday, for $200 in a PSA 10 slab. So these Julius Randle prices are kind of all over the place, but for comparison, I was able to find that exact card, which is a very rare card, in both the PSA 10 slab and an SGC 10 slab, and compare those prices. And you can see the SGC 10 sold for about 25% of the PSA 10 slab. In a best case scenario, let's just say that, let's compare it to that Premier level silver. Even still, it sold for less than half. So that's one card, relatively rare card I wanted to point out, sold for less than half of a PSA 10 slab. The next card that I picked is a LaMelo Ball, and I picked this card because it's a highly traded, should be a highly printed card as well. It's his Prism Base Rookie. A PSA 10 slab just sold for $600, An SGC 10 slab sold on October 31st, so on Halloween, for $197.50. So it sold for about 1/3 the price of a PSA 10 slab. Next card I wanted to get into is the Zach LaVine Prism Base Rookie. This is another lower print run card. It's from the year 2014 Prism Basketball, which they just did not print that many of them. As anybody who watches the NBA knows, the Bulls are off to a hot start. Zach LaVine is a big part of that. He always has been. So I wanted to look up his PSA 10 base Prism. PSA 10 just sold on October 30th for $399. And his SGC 10 slab sold on October 27th for $210. So a little bit more than half of the PSA 10 slab, but you can see we're getting at about half a PSA 10 value, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. I wanted to look at another I wouldn't say it's a highly printed card. I'd say it's fairly highly printed because it's just a Topps base card, but this is Aaron Rodgers, Topps 2005 rookie. PSA 10 just sold on October 30th for $601, which is just, to me, that's a low price, considering just earlier this year, I sold this very same card for $1,075. This was the week after they were eliminated from the playoffs. Had I sold it a week before, I had an offer as high as $1,500 on eBay. So what are you going to do? You know, I rolled the dice. I thought they could beat Tampa Bay. It didn't happen, and I lost about $400 on the card in 1 week, potentially, right, if I had taken that $1,500 offer. But the card currently sits at $600 for the same card, the same PSA 10. The pop count has increased at about 500 cards because I own this card, I know the pop count. And I remember back then there were about 1,600. And now there are probably, I believe there's 21, maybe even a little bit more than 2,100 PSA 10s. So the pop count did increase. And again, it's just a base top, so that kind of makes sense. But for the card to go down, roughly half of its value from his NFC Championship game day, I don't know, that seems a little bit too low for me, and I think that that's a good buy. Now, this is my point with SGC. If you don't want to spend $600 on this card, but you want a high quality graded card, you can get the SGC 10 for $328. That just sold on October 28th. So you see, you get it for almost half the price. And again, as I stated at the beginning of the video, I believe that an SGC 10 is the same quality as a PSA 10. I truly do. Based on watching that special with Jeff Wilson and my understanding of graded cards, in fact, SGC even has a standard that's higher than PSA 10 in terms of the centering. PSA 10 will give 60-40 centering a gem, a 10, whereas the standard for SGC is 55-45. So you're going to see their 10s slightly better centered on average because of just that standard alone. And that might make it even a better quality card than a PSA 10. I think a lot of people know this and understand this, and yet they still buy and sell PSA at a premium because that's just what is accepted in the hobby right now. And people are comfortable with that. And I'd rather own a PSA 10 because I know I can resell it for more money. I know that it's probably going to go up in value at a higher rate than maybe an SGC or any other slab. But my point here is I think one of two things is going to happen. I think either people are going to start to recognize that an SGC slab is just as good of a quality, and we're going to start to see the prices increase of these cards in the current slab. And I'm not saying that they're ever going to reach PSA prices. I do think that it's a possibility that PSA 10 prices for some of the cards come down in value. Look at certain base cards that are just highly printed that might have seemingly inflated values at this point. It's possible that they come down in value as people start to realize, well, I can buy an SGC slab for half the price. I'd rather go that route. And then that might create less demand for the PSA 10 slabs, and we might start to see a decrease. I could see that happening, but I don't see the SGC slabs catching up to a PSA 10. So just for example, in the case of the Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that the Aaron Rodgers SGC 10 will ever be worth $600 as long as the PSA 10 is worth $600. I don't think that they're ever going to be the same. I think that there's always going to be a variance because I believe that PSA is the standard in the market, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. What I see though is, like I said, either SGC does go up in value more than half compared to a PSA 10. Let's say maybe 80%, somewhere around there. I just think that there's room for these cards to grow. I think that the gap between the two is just too much. Or as PSA starts to grade more cards and open back up bulk service, and more collectors start to send their cards back to PSA, and SGC kind of starts to get phased out of the modern, ultra modern market, we might see this drastic discount in SGC slabs, similar to what we see with GMA, WCG, some of these forgotten about grading companies. If that's the case, and you have SGC slabs at this point, you can always crack them and send them to PSA, and you have a PSA 10 quality card. So I just feel like you're covered either way, is kind of my point regarding the SGC slabs, and this is kind of why I wanted to do the video. One of the other cards that I looked at was another rare card, which is a Zach LaVine courtside blue silver prism. Now this is kind of random that this card actually sold in an SGC 10 slab recently. It sold for $373. A PSA 10 sold on my slabs for $740. So again, we're looking at roughly half, maybe a little bit more than half of a PSA 10 value, but a large gap between a card, again, that's a very rare card. So if you were looking to own this card, and it's just a nice card to have, you already have assurance that it's a high quality card. There's probably no surface issues. The corners are sharp. The card is centered. You don't have to buy a raw card and guess, are all these things, in line? And if I submit it to PSA, is it going to get a 10? You're pretty much assured that this card is gonna grade very well at PSA if you have to crack it and resubmit it to PSA at some point down the road. So that's my thought with that, is you could get even these rare cards at a deep discount. I decided to look up a couple of more just to, I just figured the more examples, the better. So a couple of more common cards are the Justin Herbert Optic, and Justin Herbert's highly traded right now. He's even gone through some ups and downs. He started out the season super hot, and now he's had 2 bad games. So of course we have the overreaction committee already pointing out his flaws and doom and gloom. But either way, currently I looked up his PSA 10 Optic, and it looks like it's selling for about $300, and his SGC 10 Optic is selling for about $200. So you get about 2/3 of the value there. Looked up Shohei Ohtani as well. Topps Chrome PSA 10 is selling for a little less than $200 now, surprisingly low. I think this is a good time to buy Shohei Ohtani, to be honest with you. The pop count is relatively high. It is about 3,000, but for Shohei's popularity, for his global popularity, I don't think a 3,000 pop count is astronomically high. And I think if you can get his PSA 10 rookie for less than 200, I think that's a great buy right now, but that's a side note. My point about comparison to SGC, it's selling for pretty close to 200 a PSA 10, and SGC 10 was selling for about 125. So close to 2/3 of the value there. That seems to be the highest margin that I've seen from an SG when you're comparing an SGC 10 to a PSA 10, is maybe about 2/3 of the PSA 10 value at most. And the other reason I wanted to point this out or bring up this topic is I've heard some dealers or some YouTube content creators or just other collectors talk about, oh, well, SGC 10s sell for about 80% of PSA 10s, or I get 90% of PSA 10 value across the board. And that is absolutely not true. It's not true at card shows. It's not true on eBay. It's not true on any platform that I've seen any cards sell. So, should it be true? Maybe, it depends. I mean, again, I think the quality of the grade is just as good as a PSA. So in my opinion, if I could pick up some deep discount, and I have bought a couple of SGC slabs, not because I like the slab, I really don't, but because I like the value that I'm getting. I bought a Devontae Adams, just his regular Prism base on StarStock in SGC 10 for $60. that very same card sold on eBay in a PSA 10 slab for $300. I think you can hunt for these SGC deals all day long and really find some great bargains. So I just kind of wanted to do a video on this and let people know that there's really some value out there with SGC. I'm not an SGC fan. I have nothing against SGC, but I don't grade with SGC, and I don't really even particularly like their slabs, but I do like the value that you get currently with their prices. And I just think there's some great bargains out there. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. Thanks again for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. And thanks everyone who's subscribed recently. And I will see you on the next video.